session one, what we are planning to do is we are actually setting up the concepts so that, the context, some of the what we can say as the hygiene conditions, what factors impact, etc. So today, essentially, what we would be doing is internal factors, external factors, then beginning to get into compensation, what is equity, fairness, etc. Then we move on to the next session, which is really core of and the heart of this program, and a little complex, difficult, but definitely, I'm sure, the way I teach, you all will understand, and you'll also be doing. This is like climbing the, um, Mount Everest. Actually doing the job evaluation part, doing the job grading method, you would be doing it. Then the point plan method, I'm sure most of you have heard of his method, which is almost exactly that, the point plan method. How do you calculate points for a job? Having established the worth of the job, then using statistical techniques like regression analysis, we would be then predicting salaries as to how do I then predict salaries within my organization if I have collected market data. So designing of a salary structure. So tomorrow's program, I really want, if somebody's going to miss out, it's going to be really sad, because recording, okay, but then I would love to have all of you, present, because you would be doing the breakout activity as well. Then we move on to external equity, what it is called the market. How do you get data, etc. The entire compensation, analytics, etc. And then we do in the last session, we look at incentive schemes. Then if you are an HR head, how are you going to go about, your budget consideration? How do you do a compensation planning? If your CEO are asked to, say, hey, what is your budget for the next year? How would you go about that? How would you plan? What are those line items would you look at? And how do you go entire thing? And then last but not the least, if you have done the entire thing, compensation strategy in place, then you have designed the salary structure, but then that's not good enough. Because how do you go about doing communication? Because unless and until you communicate it properly, to get that buy-in, implement it properly, then, because ultimately the asset test, what I say is the lag indicator for this entire compensation structure is what? Your retention rate, right? Your attrition, your attraction. Because you are doing all this, but yet you're not able to attract. Your positions are there open for 6 months, critical positions, or your attrition rate is so high, your high talent is you're not able to retain them. So that's the acid test. Hey, is it working for you? Okay. All right, guys. So that's in a nutshell what you're going to do. And of course, you have to do a lot of reading. It's not that, just by listening here, of course, you'll get the practice. You got to do a little bit of reading, because then the learning curve, it becomes faster and you are able to understand. If I am fast, I don't want to assume that you know everything what I know, because definitely I'm going to, please stop me. Please ask questions. Okay. Please clarify your doubts, and that's how you will learn. And I will appreciate everybody to participate. Okay. Take part in the discussions. It has to be a two-way communication, right? Okay. Yes. All ready? Okay. Great. Okay, let's before take a minute or two. All of you said, um, you know that compensation is really very critical. We all want to learn the science of it. Why do you think organizations are really giving so much importance to compensations in today's times? It wasn't there before my time, 3 decades ago. But why now in today's times, today's information era, digitization era? Why is it that it's become so critical? I'll put the full slide on. Yeah. Why do you think so? Anybody? All of you. I mean, the
Huge
experience you all have.
competition in market. So it is always a point of a concern to organization to retain their employee by giving good CNB. Like,
Absolutely. You said it. So in today's times, the external environment. highly competitive, highly competitive. The kind of, what we can say is the war for talent. So if I have to actually achieve my business goals, I need talent. I need the right kind of talent. But then, if the then affordable price, what I can afford, right? So how am I going to get that? How am I going to attract my talent? How am I going to retain my talent? Becoming a challenge, because the other thing, the technology, the resources, material, money, everything can be what copied. But what can't be copied is that today what we say is that human capital, which creates that what differentiation, which creates that edge. What When you are in a competitive world, that creates the edge, and you want to really sustain it for a longer time. It's only if you have the right kind of a talent, then you are able to create that kind of an advantage, be it in your product, be it in your cycle time, be it in your quality. You can't deliver products and services unless and until you have the right kind of talent. And therefore, to have the right kind of talent, you really need to have those right kind of structures. So when I say right kind of structures, what kind of a salary, what kind of a base salary, what kind of an incentive, what kind of a benefits, what kind of perks. So I need to really, maybe sometimes even customize it, right? So that is why compensation has become very, very critical. Yeah. So, as rightly stated by all of you, attract, retain, right? Motivate talent, and in order to do this, we are all the time talking when it comes to compensation. There is this key word we talk about. What is it? Equity, 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 fairness, 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 right? So, when we say fairness, when we say equity, we will see how organizations can create fairness, how organizations can create equity. We'll go about this word equity. Okay. And then, of course, complying with all the legal statutes. All right. Please raise your hand. If you have, you can always raise your hand for questions. Right. So some of these challenges, as we talked about, is equity, which is becoming very, very critical, because organizations have to ensure that there is fairness and equity in the way they are compensating their employees. Then, especially the challenge is the market is fluctuating in the labor market. So, obviously, the supply and demand of the talent pools, then because of the globalization, and also because of the regulatory compliances. Okay, they keep these become really challenges. So, in such kind of challenges, let me ask you now another question. What kind of factors? See, it is only just before that. If you look at talent development, typically, if you are going to develop talent plans, developmental plans, what do you do typically? How do you go about? Anybody? Such tenured people are there. Manush, I would like you to just let me know. When we are actually looking at our talent development plans.
No, I missed out the question.
Yeah,
Could you-
yeah. I'm just saying, say for example, I'm looking at other areas besides compensation. For example, talent development. How do I go about? I understand the needs of the business. I understand what are the competency levels, then the gaps, assessing the gap. So it's all internal. It's all internal. Or look at talent management. What do I do? I actually do a business forecasting, assess the needs, then assess what kind of people do I have, what kind of readiness I have. So everything is internal. So look at most of the HR sub functions, they work getting data internally. It is compensation which has a huge impact from the external
External
environment.
sources.
Yes or no?
Yeah,
It has a
absolutely.
huge impact from the external environment. While the point I'm wanting to emphasize here is most of the other sub functions of HR, we actually look at internally. But when it comes to compensation, we can't just look at internally, okay, I paid last year this much, I'm going to pay. We have to look at external factors. Suddenly market has heated up. There's a hot skill there. I need to pay some kind of amount. So I need to constantly know what's happening in the market. So in order to do that, what are some of the external factors which impact compensation? What are some of, I'll just use a whiteboard, okay? What are some of the external factors which,
Government rules and regulations.
huh?
Government
It
rules
looks
and
like you've
regulations.
already read through,
Huh?
uh, uh, Vilma's, what is it? Reading material already, huh? Good,
Yeah.
good. Huh? Government regulations, absolutely. Then,
And cost of living.
anyone, huh?
Cost of
Okay.
living.
So can I put cost of living as a line item under economic, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Economic conditions.
Is that okay? Economic conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Cola. Cola is,
Competition.
I don't want to assume, cost of living
Living.
allowance. Okay. We can also call it like that. Okay. Then what else?
Competition. The
Pardon?
markets.
Pardon?
The markets. Competition.
When we say competition, I know, just to seeking clarification because it helps you. Competition, is it for talent? That means,
No.
ah,
For
or
example,
market
if
competition.
market. So because if in
Markets.
your industry, if there's suddenly
Exactly.
all of a sudden MNCs come in, so the entire comp and bench structure goes for a toss. Or a new
Absolutely.
corporate comes in your vicinity, so it's bound to have the repercussions.
Absolutely. Market competition. In fact, one of the impacts of globalization also,
Yeah.
the market heats up. Okay. Yeah. Then
Inflation.
just,
Inflation.
yeah. There's a little echo.
Hello.
Yeah. You said
Yeah, inflation. Inflation.
inflation. Okay. That is again, I'm just right, but that I would again relate it to economic condition. No,
Yes.
one of the impacts of economic condition could be inflation as well, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyone else? The last, somebody who wants to still contribute. Dijo, you want to? Dijo is saying, why me? Okay. Huh. All right. Okay. Let us look at all of them, huh? All right. So, do you think some of them, just running down a list, economic conditions, everybody has mentioned about it, most of them, competition, of course, labor markets, the supply and demand, right? The
Demand and
supply and
supply,
demand of
right.
talent, that also has a huge impact. And of course, external markets, cost of living, we talked about, unions influence, right? Then government regulations, and then we talked about competition, industry competition. Without looking at the internal, typically, what are those internal factors which impact compensation? Don't look at the slide, okay? What are some of those internal factors? Typically, internal
Budget.
factors, main thing, your own
Performance.
vision,
Employee
values
performance.
of the organization. You agree? Then
Budget.
compensation philosophy of the organization, right? Which has to be aligned with the business. Then your affordability. How much can you pay? Right? What is your budget considerations? Okay.
Yeah,
Thereafter, then
financials
you
of
look
the
at all
company.
that job, absolutely ability to pay. Then you look at all job evaluation, job types, compa ratios, right? Are you compa ratios? We'll explain to you. I'm just using that word, but definitely you will get to know what exactly, how to calculate all that. Okay. And then employees' performance, etc. Don't you get a raise when the high pots get or high people with high performance get better increments, etc. So some of these things also impact internally the compensation besides your education experience, etc. Okay, so quickly so the internal aspect we will do a little later. Let us focus on the external. All right, just to give you a little, yeah, let us look at government regulations. I want you all to take a pen, and you must be having a pad or something, just for a minute. What are some of the wage laws in your organization which you have to comply with? Take a minute and just, what are some of the wage laws or government regulations, which there are a lot of payroll people as well. I'm sure everybody knows about. What some of the wage laws you have to comply with? Take a minute.
Minimum wages.
And then I
minimum
can start
wages.
writing. Yeah.
Minimum wages.
Okay. Then
PF, ESI, gratuity,
Yeah,
bonus,
statutory parts.
okay. ESI. Done.
PF,
Then
PF, Provident Fund,
PF. Okay. Yeah. PF. Can I also
bonus,
say
bonus,
Gratuity, bonus,
gratuity?
yeah,
Gratuity. Can I say
bonus,
bonus?
bonus,
All right. Okay. Then can I say
taxes,
here minimum wages,
taxes,
pay, payment of wages, right? There's a difference between minimum wages and payment. Sorry, uh, payment of wages, right?
PAY,
Yeah. Then uh, can I also use here
equal remuneration,
equal?
well,
Huh? Both look on the same line, huh? Equal remuneration. Okay. Then there is something I want to add.
There's a company benefit
taxes,
also,
yeah,
right?
Income tax.
Huh?
income tax.
taxes.
Income tax, and then also all those pay for for time not worked, like for example
Yeah,
we have all
maternity
the
and yeah,
maternity
it's
benefit,
yeah,
right? Okay, and the leaves,
Leave
Leave.
benefits.
all the laws,
Yes.
mandatory, I mean. Okay, so look at this. So when we are looking at government regulations, look at the fundamental principle behind it. One is typically for wages. One is typically for wages. What is that? To prevent discrimination. So, which is that law which will prevent discrimination?
Equal
Equal
remuneration.
pay to equal
Absolutely.
work.
Equal Remuneration Act. What do we mean by the Equal Remuneration Act? What does it mean? That irrespective of the gender, race, etc., say for
Fundamental
example,
rights.
a male and a female, both are working, they're doing the same job which needs the same effort. Male cannot be paid higher than a female. Yes, that's called what? Preventing what? Discrimination.
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 In fact, let me tell you a very classic case. If there are here any lawyers and people who have worked, especially on the shop floor or manufacturing sector, the famous, it's called a famous BD case. BD is the local cigarette. I don't know how many of you know this name called BD, it's like a tobacco leaf. If you go to the rural areas, it can be Odisha, it can be Andhra Pradesh. I don't know about Bihar and all, but I know for sure that in Andhra Pradesh, where I come from, and the Odisha, so there are these tobacco leaves which you roll and make them like cigarettes. Okay. Now, the nature of work, what was it? Dried tobacco leaves had to be rolled. The male was paid 100 rupees per hour, the wage rate. per hour, and the female was paid 60 rupees per hour. Now, do you think there is discrimination here? Same
Yeah.
effort, same job. So, why should the male be paid? So then they had represented, and it was taken to the Supreme Court. It was a classic case where the women were paid even back wages for the last 5 years. Okay. And in fact, from then on, it's called, Equal Remuneration Act and this BD case. It is a classic case. Okay. All right. Then, so one is, I call it discrimination. Then, okay. Then, if I am not saying minimum wages and timely wages, what happens? There is a great possibility for an employer for what? Taking advantage, right? I may give a bag of rice instead of wages. Huh? No, you have to payment of wages. You have to pay by this day. And there is also a prescription of how much you have to pay minimum wages. In fact, these wage laws typically have emanated from what I call it as, I'm sure all of you know, ILO. Okay. And where even India is a member of the ILO. Now it says, like, for example, in India, I'm sure many of you know, minimum wages is little complex. Can you tell me? Minimum wages, it is different for
It's
every
same price.
state. No?
Yeah.
Then it is different by,
Industry.
Industry
and
wise.
then
Industry.
by
Skills.
Skill set.
Skills.
Skill
semi-skilled,
category.
skilled, three categories.
Unskilled.
Where
Yeah.
we have three categories. So when you pay minimum wages, you have to look at which state, then which industry, and then which category.
Right.
Right? Skilled, semi-skilled, or
Unskilled.
Unskilled.
No, there are
unskilled.
four categories.
Absolutely.
There are four
Unskilled,
categories.
skilled, four
Acha, four
categories.
categories is
One
it?
more
Okay.
Unskilled,
highly skilled.
semi-skilled, skilled, highly
Ah,
skilled.
okay. Now they have also made a discrimination in that. All right. So now these are all for wages. When comes, that's why categories here. Protection, social security, right? So under protection and social security, there is no choice, mandatory. Provident fund, gratuity, etc. And then besides this, you also have what? Medical insurance.
Medical insurance.
ESI.
Okay. When you have an ESI, it takes care of that. No?
Yes.
Employee
And
compensation.
in medical insurance, I want to make that this is called compensation. Okay, I'll put it here actually. Compensation indemnity. For example, for people with minimum wages, you know that 21,000 ESI provides compensation. Now, I must
Gross would be
explain to you
21,000.
what is this compensation indemnity? What is this compensation indemnity? You know, you are working on a shop floor. You have an injury and you have lost your finger. So you need to pay a certain amount of compensation. So there is a prescribed compensation if you lose your little finger or if you lose your thumb, depending on, so there is a kind of a what? How much do you pay for what kind of disability? Okay, it's very, very important. While ESI takes care of all that, sometimes in organizations, when they take this medical insurance is only paying for medical, etc., but it does not provide compensation indemnity automatically. So as an HR person, as a competent person, you have to actually doubly check and ensure that. Why? Sometimes something can happen, like say for example, all your people are gone and there is an accident. Then if there is no compensation indemnity, the company will have to pay all that amount and it will be a huge loss. So you have to ensure that there is a compensation indemnity. Are you all there? You understood, guys? Okay. And of course, PF, gratuity, all these are social security mandatory things which have to be taken care of. You have to comply. Now, after complying with all these wage laws and protection laws, etc., there's a very interesting um, um, law. This is something which you have to, pay for, ensure that as an employee you have to do. But you also can get back something from the government. What is that? In fact, most of the organizations where I have worked, we have taken a huge advantage of it. What is that called? There is something intern, you know,
Yes. Apprentice.
Apprentice.
apprentice. There is this law, apprentice. So if you actually then title it at an entry level that you're taking as an apprentice, the government provides free salary for maybe 6 months, depending on your industry, maybe for 1 year. Okay, this is also called EPP, Employee Promotional Programs. Okay, so all of you as competent person, you definitely have to look at saying that, hey, what is that I can actually get at an entry level from the government? In fact, what I have also noticed, a lot of uh, organizations have actually set up training centers as well, in these various skills where they run training programs, apprenticeship, and they get a lot of subsidy from the government. Okay. Now, having said that, income tax, is it very, very important? Income tax. Why is this important? Why should, huh? How can you ensure? One of the payroll guy will be telling me one of the very, very critical duty of a compensation manager is, how do I structure the salary in such a way that the net salary or what the employee gets in his hand at the end of the month is what? Is very high.
High.
Say, for example, I get a big fat salary as gross salary. Okay. But most of my salary is gone away in tax. Will Anandita be very happy? She's getting big gross salary, but in hand, she does not get that amount. So employees will be very happy only when he receives maximum amount of salary as net salary. Okay. Now, how do you make that possible? How do you make that possible?
We have to keep some plans which can exempt the income taxes. Yeah.
Yeah. So as for the income tax, there are only three ways. What? There are only three
Three.
methods. That is,
That is
so we have to look at, hey, there are only three ways. Anybody? Payroll guy can tell me.
like
HR. Yeah. HRA.
HRA gives you the
HRA
maximum
Standard
CE.
deductions.
tax. HRA gives you the maximum tax
LTA.
exemption, 40% in non-metro and 50% in.
person metros.
Actually, there are
Nirmala,
three
today,
conditions that
Nirmala, just to interrupt,
Yeah, yeah.
but today with the new tax regime,
Huh.
nothing apart from NPS is available.
Exactly.
Nothing apart from.
NPS
NPS.
is
Yeah.
available. So everything else has been taken away by the
So
government as per the new tax regime.
absolutely, absolutely. So it's going to be implemented. But yet, how do we manage, ensure that our employees are happy getting a maximum in hand? LTA is still
LT.
LTA.
Fuel reimbursement.
I'm coming to that. Reimbursement, you said. But in your salary, as of now, HRA, LTA, and then there is the
Stand.
allowance you give for children's education
Education.
allowance.
Yes, books and periodicals.
Once, so yeah, I'm just coming to that child education and then also hostel. Okay,
Fuel maintenance and chauffeur as well.
hostel. Huh? Okay.
Fuel
Now, and
maintenance
then
and
you have that
chauffeur.
standard deduction. How much is the standard deduction?
It's a 50,000.
If
For medical allowance and conveyance allowance, it's a 50K.
50,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Earlier, we used to split it up between conveyance and medical, but now you get a standard. Now, somebody said reimbursements. So, as of now, organizations, what do? They, in order that the employee gets a maximum and his salary doesn't get deducted in tax, they give reimbursements.
Reimbursements.
Okay, they give reimbursement.
Reimbursements.
Like for example, here in tax exempt, so you may say, hey, one is all those perks. Like for example, it can be what
Meal
your
car allowance,
Carly's, huh?
meal
Okay,
vouchers.
you can have some kind
Meal
of
vouchers.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm coming to that. The meal voucher, Sodexo, right?
Sodexo.
Sodexo.
Yes.
That
So,
also
ma'am,
it has a cap.
so
Fluxy.
Nirmala, meal vouchers are now taxable at the hands of the employer. So the fringe FBT comes into the play there.
Now it's going to be, yeah. Now
It's
you
on
have
the
to
FBT.
actually change everything. And because, earlier on, so that we can get a tax exempt, we used to get a Sodexo coupon saying that, yes, 100 rupees per day,
Yeah.
right? Gift allowance. How much?
5,000.
Yeah, you
Gift
can't give more
vouchers.
than that. Huh?
5,000 annually.
Absolutely. You can't give more than that. Okay.
Fuel and driver reimbursements are there.
Yeah, there will be reimbursements. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
whatever, but why is that reimbursement? You'll have to provide a.
Bills.
Yeah. Let me tell you a very classic, interesting case. I was working for Airtel, and there, Airtel, what did they do? They said on their appointment order, 2,000 rupees. I think Manish worked for Airtel. I wanted to know, this whether 2,000 rupees, okay, call time free. 2,000 rupees, call
Yeah.
time free.
Yes.
The income tax guy, what did he say? Huh? Now, 2,000 rupees call time free, but you have to deduct tax. And they had not deducted tax. And imagine for so many employees, 600 rupees towards income tax. Imagine how much of money must have gone from the organization side, right? So
Nirmal,
you
it
have
happened-
to be very careful in terms of, yes, Manush, yeah.
It also happened in the case of private sector
Some-
banks. So they used to extend loans to
Hmm.
employees at the discounted price of 4%. So when this
Right.
tax regulation came up, so they
Hmm.
had to pay for the PLR minus this 4%, and that had to be, well, that was a taxable component of salaries.
Right. And then you imagine how much
the
of,
banks lost the
like
case.
for example, these in Airtel also, employees who must have exited and all. But when, when the taxman had come, they had to actually pay so much of tax in crores. Again, it happened for an IT company. Let me tell you, what was this? This IT company, they were paying conveyance allowance. Okay, conveyance, not allowance, reimbursement.
Yes.
And you know what they did? So the taxman, first thing he asked, show us who are the people who are there, in the location, and who are the people who are offshore, who are sent abroad. But the accounts department was paying it to everybody. Now, can you do that?
No.
So then once the account man gets, the tax man suspects something, then they will go through the entire thing in detail. So you have to be doubly sure whatever you do, you have to be very, very careful, because besides these major things, everything calls for okay. Okay, guys. So we'll get into detail a little more in the third session, where we are actually going to learn compensation structuring. Okay. Okay. We talked about all these wage laws. All right. Then we are talking about the union influence. You know how the unions also have an impact on the wages, because typically what happens, it's a win-win for the employer and the employee, as opposed to getting, talking to every single worker. So they come together, form a union, and it is recognized by the employer, and they actually negotiate, the unions negotiate their wage settlement. All right. Then labor market conditions. We talked about it. The demand and supply for talent definitely has an impact on salary competitiveness. Okay. And we talk industry standards. So when we do market comparisons, peer comparisons, we look at what is the market paying, and to ensure competitiveness. So we will say, hey, okay, let us be at a 70th percentile, 80th percentile. So what is the percentile? Definitely, we're going to look at that a little later. And definitely, we're also looking at benefit trends, etc. Because if your peers, if your competition is having certain kind of a benefits, you would also like to adopt those benefits. Then of course, we talked about the economic conditions, right? When we talk about economic conditions, inflation. So how do we manage inflation? Obviously, inflation, then you are making certain kind of a wage adjustments, because the rupee value, whatever you get, is not the same, it's downsides. So you need to make those wage adjustments. Then what about the cost of living? What you pay in Hyderabad may be different, and what we pay in what is it? Say Dubai will be different, right? So, for example, just think about it. Think of a company, a multinational which has, which is existing in different locations. Maybe a company like a Shell. Okay, globally it exists in. Say, for example, the job is the same. All right. Today, Amrita is here in Hyderabad. She's posted to Dubai. Okay. Then how do they make those adjustments? How do they do? How is your? Do you get the same salary? Do you think you can live with the same salary what we pay in Hyderabad? So just think, anybody. It's not Amrita alone. How do you make those
Yes, relocation
So
can be
adjustments?
paid.
as per the market, we will check everything, and then we set the salary. Set.
So an organization like Shell. So what happens? It does job evaluation.
Yeah, job
Huh?
evaluation,
If
benchmarking.
if if two employees are doing the same job, whether you are in Dubai and whether you're in Hyderabad, so there is some salary called the base salary, which is the same for everybody. But then it's the same job. But then the locations are different. So when the locations are different, they, uh, uh, the rent in Dubai is so high, the cost of living is so high. So therefore, you have to factor in. So there is something called the COLA allowance, cost of living adjustments.
Just
Okay. So in fact, most of the organizations, to make it easier, such when there are transfers from different locations, the COLA takes care of the differences in the regional variations. All right, which influences the compensation. Okay. And also we talked about the supply and demand of talent. Yeah. Now, what about demographics and sociological changes? Okay. What do we mean by this? Demographic and sociological changes. Let us look at this huge diversity, right? In today's times, in terms of the gender, in terms of age, etc. So now, if you look at the millennials, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if you look at people would actually study, then they would work for at best one organization, so they would retire. Now what's happening typically? Anybody? Rakesh, what do you think is happening now?
No,
What is the trend? I'm sure you all, as HR people, must
It's
be
2
seeing
to
those
3
challenges.
years,
Huh?
people are switching
Seniority is only 2 to
jobs.
3 years. They will come,
Yeah.
they will work, they will go on a sabbatical, or they will go on for higher education, or they would like to actually have a flexibility. So, what does that mean for us, for a compensation person? That means you have to take into consideration what are their aspirations. How do we then blend this entire thing so that otherwise you will have attrition rates? So today, organizations, there is so much of what options for employees to go for further education. One is sabbaticals, or they are also giving them, some kind of higher education programs where you can say, hey, work while you study, right? Okay. Or if you want, okay, fine, you can work for few hours, flexibility. So these are all the kind of changes which you are seeing in today's time. Was it prevalent 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago? No, not at all. So today we have blended work styles. Now, what do we mean by portfolio workers? Have you seen everybody? They say, hey, we are getting burnt out. We don't want to work after 45. We don't want to work after, we want to, if I have become a subject matter expert, I'd rather work as a consultant for a couple of organizations and that's it. It wasn't there earlier. Are you seeing that trend today? Absolutely. And then what do I mean by career deceleration? In fact, older folks, when I say career deceleration, typically what happens? You retire and then hang up. But no, that's not happening today. In fact, older people, they're saying, hey, we want to be in the system for 4 hours, 3 hours. We would love to work. Now, what does that mean for a compensation person? That means you can actually get this talent much, maybe not highly competitive kind of a salary. You can get it a much lesser salary. And what is the trend in organizations? How do they employ these people? For example, if I need an expert in PF, gratitude, etc., do I need a full-time person? I don't need a full-time person. But yet I need an expert. I can't afford to have that person making all blunders. I rather have a consultant who's who's retired as a PF commissioner or whatever. He can come for 1 week, once in a week, on a contractual basis. But the kind of work he will do is absolutely, I can have SLA saying that, error free, put all those things, and much lesser. Likewise, say for example, there are key competencies, but I cannot hire a person at a very high salary. At the same time, I can't afford to hire an average person because it's a very strategic position. For example, do you know that in some of the biotechnology companies where R&D, they come at a very high price if you have to hire them at a full time. You are taking people who have retired scientists who can work for few hours and they give you such work. So you have to find out, hey, what are those positions where I need experts, but at the same time, I can take people at much lesser salary on a contractual basis. Do you have any experiences or do you have such kind of examples in your organization? Anyone? No? Anybody? No? Let me give you a very classic case. I don't know if, okay, I don't know how familiar you are with Hyderabad. Are you familiar with the Satyam group? Erstwhile Satyam group.
Yeah, yes.
Sure, some of you must be. So the Satyam group had something called, public-private partnership, and they were running a company called EMRI, Emergency Medical Research Institute. Okay, what does it mean? That means it had a call centers, and you give a call. It was like availability of an ambulance whenever there is an emergency. And that ambulance would reach that person immediately to any nearby hospital. So there was a number, it was possible through a call center. You got that? That was the model. Emergency Medical Research Institute. Okay. Likewise, they started another one called HMRI. What was this doing? This was again another call center, but the purpose was different. Availability of medical care to the what? Remotest corner of the village as well. Reach. And how would they do it? They would do it through a kind of an ambulance which is called 104. Also, they had a call center where they had doctors and they were running telemedicine. So they were given a number, anybody could call, and then there were doctors who would attend, who do telemedicine, and they would deal with the patients and prescribe them. Now, what had happened? There was huge attrition. Because typically doctors, so 2 months, 3 months, there was huge attrition. So typically all HR people know that when there's huge attrition, what happens? A, huge recruitment costs. B, lesser productivity. Your process does not get matured, right? There's a lot of disruption of work. Now, why was the attrition? What was the reason? They were recruiting young doctors, but doctors' aspirations were different. Their intent was different. They were actually parking themselves till the time they would go abroad or till the time they would go for higher studies like MD, etc. Because they did not consider working in for them, call center was something a little low meaning, demeaning kind of a job. What do you think this HMRI did? Because I was closely associated with that. What do you think we did? Any idea from career acceleration? Anybody? So you know what we did? We actually then looked at good, physically good and domain specialist retired government doctors. Now, why did we take government doctors? A, they had no career aspirations. They were very happy. They had their children settled, etc., etc. Okay. Now, but can the doctors be there for a full time 8 hours? Retired doctors, not possible. So what did we do? We actually made 2 shifts, pick and drop. Okay. And then on a Saturday or a Sunday, camaraderie, all government doctors, they know each other, good place to enjoy, know each other. But at a half the salary. And let me tell you guys, it worked very well. Now, worked very well means, what do you think? Worked well should have impact on productivity, right? So, when we looked at correlation exercises and we looked at productivity studies, we saw that while these young doctors would take about 10 minutes per call, the efficiency increased that within 5 to 6 minutes, they were able to diagnose. And why do you think they were able to diagnose faster? Because they had huge experience, subject matter expert. They had deep pockets of experience. So it helped us in both ways: reduce attrition to improve efficiency and productivity. So therefore, you have to look at what kind of jobs will need such. In fact, when I was also the vice president for Tata's, we did a similar thing. We had huge attrition in our middle level and top level, since it was a knowledge BPO and also high-end processes, huge attrition. And it was becoming very expensive to get managers because, affordability was a problem. Then what did we do? We took retired bank officers, retired army officers, we trained them, we booted them, because we didn't want them to, at a not call taking. We needed somebody with that discipline, leadership, regimen, etc., which these retired people had. And it really worked very well. Very less attrition, no compensation problems, and it was a win-win situation. So for a competent person, why do you think we need to know all this? Yes, definitely we need to look at, hey, what are the various ways I can actually look at reducing the cost? Why I said reducing the cost? Because it is very, very important. There is this affordability cost is directly linked to, say, for example, as a competent person, if my wage cost is very, very high, then what happens? If my wage cost is very high,
It affects profitability of the company.
you're spot on. It has an impact on
Profit of company.
Now, can you afford to? You have two options: increase the wage cost because you want the best people, and then reduce your profitability, which your CEO is not going to accept, right? Huh? Because he definitely wants, even when you are doing increment, he'll say, hey, what are the ways we can do to ensure that I still maintain a 5% increase in my profitability? So you have to ensure that as well. So there is something called ECR. What is the ECR?
Employee cost.
Who said that? Huh? I just not, but who said that? Rakesh. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, kya hua ye? Oh, sorry. Huh? So, ECR is employee cost to
Revenue.
this is very important. Employee cost to revenue. And how do we derive? We will be doing that. Take your revenue, divide it by the wage cost, your payroll wage cost, you will get that. So, for example, yours is say 20%. Huh?
20%.
So
18.
absolute wage ECR cost does not tell you anything. Just like compensation, you have to check with whom you are competing with. You have to look at benchmark it with your other companies whom you are competing. And say, for example, they are having 15, somebody is having 12, somebody is having 16. That means they are able to give their products and services at a competitive cost as in compared to your wage cost, because you are already at 20%. You can't afford to. So to remain competitive, so what you need to do, you have to check. Your CEO will say, hey, our wage cost is very high. What are we going to do about it? Look at it. How do we reduce our wage cost? That's where he takes, even to give sanction for one full-time employee, he thinks a lot. No? Okay,
Yes.
so this is a ECR is a very, very important wage cost. Environment. There was somebody in the environment. So environment is also very, very important, right? Huh? That's also a very big external factor, and we need to be responsible. So it becomes a corporate social responsibility, right? Yeah. Yeah, the last one, globalization and technology. Without much deliberation on this, quickly, how does globalization and technology impact? Earlier, there was people mobility, right? People would be sent to different offshores. But today, because of technology, what is happening? You can actually shift the jobs. So I don't want to really tell the entire story of the call center, etc. So what exactly is this outsourced stuff? You are actually shifting a job which costs higher, cost arbitrage, shifting the job to a lower, a location where it costs less, right? And this is possible only because of technology and globalization. And also because of globalization and technology, you are able to eliminate jobs, lower in jobs by automation. Yes or no? Huh? And when you eliminate jobs, keeping the ECR intact, you are able to pay higher salaries. Like, for example, most of the Cognizant, most of the multinationals and the IT companies, what happens? The client is not going to increase his commissions. So what do? Typically, you are actually trying to see who are the heavy heads. Okay, can I actually give them a handshake, or can I send them elsewhere to another department? Because I want to reduce my wage cost. So I'm going to actually upskill my people who are with the lesser cost, and give them higher responsibility, and lower end jobs, I'm going to automate them. So in such a way that I'm still able to maintain the client's SLAs and also the profitability. Therefore, all the business heads, P&L is very, very critical for them. So in the P&L, the biggest cost is also operational cost is, one of the operational costs is wage cost. Okay. So when we are talking about globalization and technology, it has helped us in job mobility, shifting of jobs, right? Eliminating jobs, we talked about it. So in fact, this is what has happened, what I call it as, if you shift a job, initially what happens, you are able to pay higher salaries, but after some time it stagnates. And what is that stagnation point called? Economic tripwire. Economic tripwire. Now, what is economic tripwire? Say, for example, so what is economic tripwire is, say, for example, a software developer. The salary of a software developer in US is $60,000 to $80,000. Okay. Now I shift that job to India. Now, at what salary can you get a software developer here? The lowest salary. If I put it here, can you get around? Hyderabad alone has how many? 3 lakh engineers every year. Engineers, MBAs. So you can get him at 3 to 5 lakhs. Okay. Then more people, there is still talent war, then you are increasing it. But there is a point where you says, hey, it does not make economic sense. That's called the economic tripwire. But have you noticed, guys, engineers and what is it called? MBAs, you have huge, the supply for this is huge. But think of the chartered accountants. Some of the professions, they have actually tried to regulate their supply. What about the chartered accountant? Have you noticed the chartered account? The numbers are always, because the Chartered Accountant Institute, it created readiness in terms of the technology, etc. But it has not increased the supply. Why has it not increased the supply? So that it can actually command a certain amount of salary, right? Unlike the engineers and the MBAs. Okay. So, this is what, in summary, in a nutshell, the impact of various external factors in terms of regulation, unions, okay, demographics, economic conditions, globalization, technology, which impact the salary. So in the earlier model, before we broke for tea, we were talking about the external factors which were impacting compensation. Now we are looking at the internal factors and beginning to understand, hey, what is compensation? What are those components? What is an equity theory? Before we begin to get into what job evaluation, market surveys, etc. Okay, it's very, very important and critical for us to understand the components for 2 reasons. A, to define our own compensation strategy. So when we just talk about what is compensation, how would you respond? How would you define compensation? How would you define compensation? It's an exchange, right? You are giving something. The value you get maybe both in terms of monetary, non-monetary, for the effort or for the what? You have given something, so for you're getting a reward. So the organization provides you something monetary and non-monetary in exchange for the effort you have put in. So that is, to be very, very simple, put it simplistically, that's compensation. Let us understand the components of a compensation system. Okay. So typically, yeah, this is really very important because every organization's compensation strategy or it decides its compensation strategy uh, based on what kind of a pay mix it wants to give. When I say what is pay mix is what amount of direct pay, what amount of indirect pay. It's a combination. Pay mix. What amount of base salary, what amount of variable salary. Now, all this pay mix is dependent on the business goals, the business objectives. So, therefore, your compensation strategy or your pay mix is not done in silo or in isolation. It has to be aligned with your HR strategy, which in turn has to be aligned with your business strategy. Okay. Now, having said that, let us first just broadly look at what are the components of a compensation system. Very broadly, we say direct pay and indirect pay, which I'm sure everybody knows. Direct pay is all about cash. Not that indirect pay also does not have cash, because in the retirals like your PF, gratuity, you have cash. But in direct pay, in a reasonable time, 2 or 3 years. So direct pay is all about cash. So when we talk about direct pay, please look at it very carefully. It has certain components. What are they? A, base pay. There is also another name given to it, fixed pay, guaranteed pay, but typically it is called base pay. Now, why is it very, very important? Base pay is actually a fixed pay or a guaranteed pay, which you give month on month. It does not come with any contingency, guaranteed. The moment Anamika Pandey is given an appointment order, she is on board. Whether she performs, not performs, every month I have to give that base salary or that fixed salary. Okay? A. How is it derived? The base salary is derived on the basis of job evaluation. How do you derive base salary? Base salary is derived from job evaluation. Of course, job evaluation, there are many techniques. We'll be talking about it. But base salary is all about the worth of the job. How much does this job worth? What is the worth of the job? And then you pay. It can be called, today nobody calls wages because, even for a worker, even if he's paid on hourly basis, it's still called, salary. But wages is typically used for a worker who is paid an hourly wages. Okay. And salary at the end of the month, your salary is getting credited. Okay. Now, if Amrita was given her base salary is 1 lakh and I give her a check of 1 lakh, what happens? Then will she get a lakh of rupees? So the entire thing gets tax. So there is some amount of tax deduction on that 1 lakh, right? So therefore, this base salary in the current practice, it's broken down into certain components so that you can get tax exemption. We are still not talking about the current one. I'm actually didn't want you all to confuse with the current one because, maybe for the next time, then I will leave it. But as of now, the practice, so the base salary is a fixed salary, which is your salary, guaranteed salary. Okay. But so if a person's base salary is 50,000, typically I don't pay 50,000. I break that down into components. And how do I break that down into components? Looking at those 3 tax exemptions, HRA, LTA, and others. Okay. And whatever is remaining, I put it in another bucket called special allowance. Now, special allowance is also is another line item, which is a part of your base salary, but it attracts tax. Got it?
Got it.
Especially abroad, so internationally, some of the people, global organizations, when they look at the special allowance, they say, hey, are you giving more than what the base salary is? So you need to really make them understand that as the name suggests, special allowance is not a special allowance, but it is a part of a base salary. Okay, guys? So this is how it is. Base salary is actually calculated through job evaluation, which we will be doing in detail. Next element is variable pay. Now, what is variable pay? As the name suggests, variable, varies. That means I don't give it to you as something which guaranteed. No. You
It
may
is not
get,
fixed.
huh?
It is not fixed.
You have to earn it.
Yeah.
You have to earn it. You may get X amount now, this month. You may get X amount minus something next month. It depends on various factors. We'll look at the variable pattern. There is so variable means contingent on different factors, parameters. Now, so it is not guaranteed. The third element is called deferred pay. Deferred pay means you have earned for it now, but it will be paid later. Deferred pay. Like, for example, Rakesh is a person of high talent, critical person. So I'll say he has to be in this job for 3 years. So he comes with a retention bonus, but I don't pay him now. But I'll say, hey, this is what it is. If you stay for 3 years, I'll give you the retention bonus with a certain percentage every year. Doesn't mean that I've stayed for 2 years plus 8 months and he will get the complete deferred pay. No. Got it? So that
Got it,
is
ma'am.
called deferred pay.
Deferred pay.
Got it?
Got it.
Now we'll talk about other things. So and then is the indirect pay, which is all about non-monetary. It comes with protection, which is mandatory protection programs, right? Those compliances of PF and gratuity, etc. Then again, it comes with the mandatory. You have to give pay for time not work, which is maternity benefit. But I don't have to comply with paternity. It is my goodwill that an organization says, hey, even male people need paternity. So that is, but it is not mandatory, at least as of now. Okay. Now, and then there are various services and purposes. Today, employee wellness is becoming very, very important at a medical level, at a mental level. So there are a lot of things. We'll just talk about them. The most important thing I want to say here is this pay mix is dependent on what kind of a compensation strategy you have. If I have a high performance compensation strategy, okay, since all of you are really tenured people, and then what kind of a mix will I have? What kind of a mix will I have? High performance compensation strategy.
So
My
variable pay ratio would be
variable
more.
pay will be very high because I will try to
Variable.
get people to work more, so that they get more. Right? Broadly, if I have a strategy called retention strategy, my compensation strategy is retention strategy, then where will be my focus, my pay mix?
Perks and perks. I mean,
Who's this person? Amruta, absolutely right. See, for example, I will take mostly people from entry level, right? Very less of lateral level. I will believe in a build model to some extent, but a building model. So that means I will focus more on growth and development. Okay. I will be giving base salaries, of course, as per job evaluation, but my focus will be more on benefits, etc. So that people are very, very happy. Right? So that people will stay for a longer time. Are you getting that? We'll talk more about the pay mixes, etc. So how we can differentiate based on my compensation strategy, I will what that business requires. For example, in an insurance business, I have to make high revenues. So therefore, obviously, I'll have a high variable pay for all my salespeople, LIC agents, so that my base salary will be less, so that they can make more revenue. Because their business is to go out and actually sell the insurances. For a sales guy. So high variables. So that's how it is. Now let us talk about a little more about the types of variable pay. Let me just classical example or the type of variable pay is what? For performance. When we are talking about okay, so So we're talking about variable pay. The first one is for performance, right? Huh? Now, when we are talking about performance, it can be at an individual level. Okay. Can it be at a team level?
Team level
Can it be at a location level?
Yeah.
and
Can it be at an
organization level.
organization level?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? The purpose of having at an individual level in an organization is when the nature of the job, like a salespeople, etc., which is individual roles, they have to work. So there you have individual performances. Then when it is a teamwork, when you have certain projects, etc., then it is team. Or you want at a location. For example, it's team rewards. So location, a common name is called gain sharing. Anybody has heard of it? Typically in ISPAT, even Manoj must have heard of it. What is the purpose of this? Typically, the outcome is you want that the location should make more profit, more productivity, operation, more revenue. So in order to motivate them, we'll say, hey, so that they can collaborate. All the employees teams can come together, work together, and they would have certain kind of what is it criteria. It could be in terms of all resources. It could be material, right? Certain percentage of material you should not rework and all. Then it can be in terms of quality, no rework. Then in terms of timelines, cycle timelines, right? So you will have certain things, and then you will actually fix targets based on the past targets. Okay, and this really helps very well. In fact, even in IT organizations, they have started using this gain sharing, especially when there are cross-functional teams working on projects. Okay, so that people can collaborate. Why? In a cross-functional team, the outcome or the result is dependent on, there is a lot of interdependency. So I may not actually be very cooperative. Then what will happen? There are obstacles. The work gets stagnated. You are not able to finish the time in deadlines. Then there will be penalties, right? So therefore, this gain sharing. At an organization level, typically, what do you call it?
Profit level.
Profit sharing.
Equity.
Okay, right? So depending on the kind of profits the organization is made, they'll say, okay, fine. Then 10% of it I want to share across all the levels based on the base salaries, etc. Certain percentages given as a profit. Okay. Now here, the most important thing when you're devising such things, what I want you all to talk about is, if you recall, in your most of the organizations, as a head of HR in my past organization, very often HR would come and say, finance would come and say, ma'am, why are you giving this 10% as a variable pay? We have no particular significant role. You should give us 100% of that variable pay. Lot of support functions typically say it's okay for operational functions, they have targets, etc. But why should we have variable pay? What is your logic behind that? You will notice that most of the support functions, finance, HR will say, why should we have variable pay? We should be given full 100% guaranteed salary. Why that 10% of variable pay? What is your logic behind that?
They are supporting function to,
They're
enable other
supporting
function to work
significant,
and
but yet there is
interdependent.
interdependency factor, so that they are able to actually, the most important thing is line of sight. What does it mean? The big picture. So they have to collaborate. So otherwise they'll say, I will do my bit and that's it. No? Okay. And so even in spite of this, now, say for example, there's an organization where there is no scope for making what is it? I mean, there's no scope in the job for increasing your revenue or targets. When if I have actually a high percentage of variable, then what happens? The entire intent is lost. What I meant by saying that is, for example, there is a small grocery store. What is it? Grocery store. There's only one sales rep, your local store, where if you go to that Kirana store, you'll have one or two salespeople, right? One or two salespeople. Okay. Now, so for example, an average guy makes, say, 100 units. Huh? Then a high performer makes at best 150. Sorry. I want it to be there. 150. What does it mean? When an average performer is able to make only 100 units, and high performer is able to make 150 units, sales guy. Why? Morning till evening, people come. There's a limited number of customers. Even if I work very hard, this high performer can make only 150. Now, this is what? This is a Kirana store. Now, think of an LIC agent. Okay? You know LIC agent, right? Now, an average guy, say for example, is making 100 units. A high performer what does it mean? A high performer makes 500 units. What does it mean? There is so much of scope in the job when you are actually looking at it. That means there is a term for it. In fact, I was wanting, just like my niece was telling me where they were doing, in Harvard medicine, they have these cue cards first. They have to memorize all the cue cards for medical lingo glossary. Okay, like that. Even in compensation, you need to keep cue cards to understand certain vocabulary. So this is called what is it called? Performance elasticity. But let me tell you, the paradox is in most of the organizations where I have experienced and consulting, the job does not have performance elasticity, and you have actually designed incentive schemes. How will it motivate people? There is no scope for making. For example, leave alone other areas. Think of two departments in HR. Recruitment. An average performer can close with a criteria of good CVs, etc. Average guy will say, for example, will do 100, and high performer with innovative ways he can do 250 also. I mean, I have done studies and correlated because there is scope in recruitment, right? He will do innovative sourcing, everything, and he will get good quality people who will not attract. Whereas, so that means, can I have an incentive in recruitment? Can I have a good incentive? If I don't have an incentive and only give fixed salary, will that guy be motivated? If I say, hey, if you want to, close in the required time of 30 days or 60 days with, I'll put the criteria, of course, so many, qualifications and quality of talent, which does not attract within 3 months or 6 months, etc. So will be. But think of, I can see some payroll guys here. Huh? Tell me your experience in payroll. If I have a huge amount of variable pay there, at best, what can you do? You work on a software, you work on a spreadsheet. At best, you can have 0 defects. When there is a help desk, at least if you reduce the number of errors, your employees are very, very happy. Right? But is there scope if I put huge percentage of variable pay high? He'll be demotivated. Sir, where is the scope for me? So are you seeing the difference between even two roles? If you want to motivate, then you can look at how you can have a higher percentage for people who are directly involved, no, production, sales, etc. But if you are looking at a finance guy, if you are looking at a facilities guy, yes, to a certain extent in facilities also on time, etc., where you can say, hey, we are tracking and within how much time you are actually troubleshooting, closing it. We can all look at that. Got it? The funda? Very clear?
Nirmala, I have a question here. For
Please.
example, in an organization, now you have taken two examples, right? One is a recruitment guy and one is a payroll guy. I fully understand the explanation behind it. But in an organization, normally any organization follow the standard structure, whatever they defined for their organization. Anything. Base structure is more or variable P is less or 80-20 ratio or 19-10 ratio, whatever. So how can it be a different in an organization for a recruitment person or a payroll person or any sake of any like sales? Because organization
So,
normally follow
in an
the
organization,
standard.
you have one called a pay structure. But you also have incentives for salespeople. Salespeople, of course, has a different sales
Different,
structure.
right?
Okay.
Right.
Recruitment has an incentive scheme. The question is, when there is scope in that role for you to generate high performance productivity, am I looking at that? Or am I telling you, no, I'll only give you this much. Then even if I'm a great performer with a lot of enthusiasm, I'll say I have to get the same amount. Right? Are you with me? Making
Yeah.
sense? So unless and until you differentiate, only when there is scope. So typically you will see that in recruitment for recruiters, there will be incentive. So your your point is well taken, saying that you have a typical compensation structure where you will see that when you are having a CTCA, 5%, 10% is your variable pay, right? All the departments. But apart from that, you'll also see certain functions like a sales function, like other functions, where it is directly related to what? Revenues, their structure is a little different. They have much more percentage of variable pay. Or alternately, you will have different incentive schemes, because otherwise, how will you generate revenue? How will you generate high performance? Okay. All right. So we looked at performance, right? And which we will go in detail when we are talking about individual equity as well. Okay. Now we are looking at, apart from performance, there is something called merit skill, or we also call it as merit incentive. Now, in today's times, it's also called skill-based skill incentives, very, very commonly called. Now, this merit skill incentive comes in two buckets. One is cross-skill, and the other is the other is up-skill. Cross-skill, when you're working in a project, depending on your, again, functions and organizations. So, let me give you an example. For example, Volkswagen. I am hiring a welder. Okay. Say welder, fitters, these are the people who you'll employ, right? So I'm just taking a very basic example so that you can understand. So when I give an appointment order to welder, I'll say, hey, if you also certify in fitter, okay, certification fitter, you will get an extra incentive, considering the fact that these fitters come at a higher salary also. Okay. And the demand supply is a little short. So what am I doing? I'm trying to create a talent pipeline. So this guy comes, he gets certified. The moment he's certified, then I also take him through a certification process, test him, assess him. I'll say, hey, from the day you've got your certificate, I'm additional incentive, cross-skill, additional incentive. Now what happens? How does it help the organization? It takes care of my absenteeism. It takes care of the turnover. I don't have to have full, number of per skill job. In the sense, I can reduce the number of people whom I hire because they are multi-skilled. Okay. Apart from that, when the fitters come at a high cost, I'm going to put them into a fitter and then take them at a, welder level. So in many organizations, you will see they'll create a kind of a pipeline where they will see that entry level people, they'll try to get them cross-skilled or multi-skilled so that at any point of time, they have this human capital readiness for the required skills necessary, and they don't have to go and buy at a higher cost. Are you with me, guys? Cross-skill. Huh? It can happen even in an IT environment where today organizations saying, hey, if you get your, because especially in IT, what was yesterday is obsolete today. Continuously, there is all the time, new skills. So depending on the kind of a pipeline of projects, they keep getting to know, and if there is readiness and they're incentivizing. Got it? Now, what is upskill? For example, take a bank, Citibank. What does it do? I've recruited a BCom guy as an accountant at the lowest level. Right? Now he's a high performer. I want to retain him. But what will motivate him to retain? Salary. And I have to grow in the
Career
organization.
progression.
So I will tell him career progression. Hey, in the next 5 years, you can become a manager. Provided you pass what? The CAIIB or the CAI required qualifications 1, 2, and you are getting what? In 2 years this and 3 years this. And additional incentive increment when you reach the milestone. That means I've actually created a career growth plan where I'm also giving him, incentivizing him. So therefore, I don't lose my high talent. Upskill, ready, talent pipeline, readiness to, I have my high pots being retained in the organization. I don't have to go and buy in the market. And they're also motivated. Are you with me, guys? So merit incentive is called cross-skilling and upskilling. Very clear? Any questions? No. The third kind, we also call it as MLRI, or I'm sure all of you have heard about it. And in today's times, because of the kind of war for talent and market fluctuations, MLRI, what is this? Market linked retention incentive. As the word suggests, every year the IT companies take a stock of, hey, what are those, with respect to their organization, what are those Java, whatever it is, which are becoming hot. When do they become hot? When there are many more coming in, that means they are actually fighting for the same talent. Obviously, then I told you supply demand. Then what happens? People start shifting. It takes some time again to balance, but shifting. So at that point of time, if I as a company, when I'm not knowing, my people won't be retained. So I need to take cognizance of the fact that the skill is very critical for me. So I give a allowance. Now you may ask, but why can't you add it in the fixed salary itself? Then what will happen? After 2 years, 3 years, that skill becomes no more hot. Then I'm left with high wages. So it's also called MLRI, or hot skill bonus. Any questions here? Any questions here? But
What is the full form of MLRI, ma'am? Can you repeat that?
pardon? Huh?
MLRI full form? What is the full form
Yeah,
of MLRI?
market linked retention incentive.
Retention. Okay.
Tension.
Yeah, market linked. Now, this is applicable to only mom and shop. I call it as mom and shop. That means small organizations. Why? Because they don't have excess people on the bench. They're all the time rotating them. They're always busy. So they have to. Because when, when I was doing programs, participants from TCS, VPs, in fact, and Wipro, or even Infosys, what did they say? We used to have this MLRI and hot skill, ma'am, earlier, but now we don't give anymore. Why? The large organizations, when they were giving the other employees with the, other what is this, IT technologies, current contemporary one, they said, hey, but ma'am, we are also very, very critical. We should also be getting something. So what happened? They did better planning. So what is that planning about? The HR, they plan so well that they get to know 3 to 6 months in advance what are the kind of projects in the pipeline. So that means they have to interface or connect with the business constantly, the HR planning guy, so that he can actually plan what kind of technologies. That is called what? Business forecasting. Okay. So what are the kind of projects coming? What are the kind of technologies required? What is my readiness? Do I have them? And if not, then people on the bench are trained in that. Are you with me? So, win-win. When people are on the bench, they don't get what I call as variable pay. Why? They only get guaranteed pay. So what happens typically when they're on the bench? They're waiting to exit and get a better opportunity in another organization. So it's very, very critical and important for the organization to ensure that they retain, because they could be high performance. Project is over now. They're on the bench. Then they don't get variable pay. So they get, they have to work on projects. Only then they continuously get, variable pay. So that's the time they use for upgrading skills, creating those, gaps. So what are those skills which are required in the pipeline? And they get trained. So they're able to retain their employees, as well as what is it? Human capital readiness. Readiness. So if at any point of time I have to calculate my human capital readiness, I know that, hey, 80%, 90%. But if it is red, obviously I'm in danger, right? I'll have to go and buy, because ultimately if I don't have my human capital, then I'm not able to what? Deliver business results. Are you with me now? How this hot skill thing, huh? Okay. Then, so we talked about what? Just to give a quick recap, we talked about performance, we talked about hot skill, and we also talked about what? Merit skill. Aware of hardship. I'm sure everybody is aware of hardship. What is it? The teller, a cashier gets till the time he's doing teller allowance. A call center guy, if he's working at night, he gets a night shift allowance. Any of you, can you give me examples of your own organization giving hardship allowances? Quick, quick. In Manash's Ispat, they must be getting what? Not the regular mining allowance. They will get, what are some of the 2 or 3 kinds of hardship allowances, Manoj?
No, we give the mining allowance, then we give allowance to the people on the steel melting shop. So
exactly, because it's very hot, conditions very hot. So
we give
they get a
them.
special
So
allowance.
for them, it's a 4-hour shift actually. So instead of an
Right.
8-hour shift, so they get a 4-hour shift.
Right.
So
Right. Right. So why do we give the hardship allowance and not actually add it to their salary? If the entire organization is working in the night, then you can actually have incorporated and have a, in the fixed salary. But now this night guy can also be shifted to daytime. And if I add it in this fixed salary, then I'll be forced to pay the fixed salary even when he's working, not required to be working in the hardship. So therefore, you are categorizing and saying that as long as you're working on this job, it requires hardship, you are getting that. For example, there are 2 HR guys who's looking after payroll. Okay. So one payroll guy is only working, within the office, but another payroll guy has to work, take the cash, go 50 miles, disburse it at a remote center and come back. If you don't give him any hardship allowance, right? It's not going to motivate him. So, but as long as he's going there for 3 months, he gets it. Then another person gets deputed, he gets it. So for the period he is going through that hardship, he gets that hardship allowance. Got it? Very clear, guys? Can I move on? Okay. So these are the various things. Now we come to deferred pay. variable pay is there, especially for performance. If you want to have a high performance, then you create that variable pay. Now, deferred pay. What is deferred pay? I said, yes, you want, the person has earned for it. Or, for example, you want the person to stay for a longer time. So typically it is used for retention. For example, uh, stocks, ESOPs. Why do you give him ESOPs? Because it doesn't mean that today Rakesh gets ESOPs and then he can vest them and he can buy them and he's gone. No. Hey, Rakesh, you are a very good employee. You've been there for 1 year, seen the work. Okay, here is the letter of intent. You are going to get 500 shares at this price, and you can actually cash them only after a year and a half or two.
Right.
Maybe 100% or 50. So, retention, right? But it is his choice whether he wants to buy them at that time, whether that market is fluctuating, depends on it. Okay? Yeah, it's a choice. But essentially, what is it for? Retention. Ensuring that your high pots actually get retained. Okay? Now, retention bonus I've already explained. Now, what needs to be explained is this very interesting called annuity plan. And most of the organizations, this is like that superannuation plan. It is extended to only middle level managers and above who are at a higher salary so that they can save on the tax. See, as you keep growing higher, salary will be high. Then a lot gets deducted as tax. To save some amount of tax, what happens? The organization extends an annuity plan. What does it mean? Saying that, okay, instead of this getting this amount, getting deducted as tax, you can actually then save it in an annuity plan, which is the company actually, devises it. And then that in turn, it gets invested in LIC. Now, when you leave the organization, you can take 50% of it. And after that, then they give certain percentage, but you can't actually take it entire thing. Now, for some of you who really want, I can also send you an annuity plan, how it looks, etc. Okay. Maybe by tomorrow you'll have. All right, guys.
Okay.
Okay. Now, have you understood base, variable, deferred pay? And I also told you, depending on your compensation strategy, high performance, high retention, etc., you can actually then have your pay mixes. Now we are coming to this indirect pay, what is also called a what? Non-monetary. In non-monetary A, there is something called statutory compliance. You have no choice, whether it is for provident fund, gratuity, pension, social security, all those things as per those acts we have discussed already, you have to comply with them. Okay, and including pay for time not worked. What does it mean? Maternity benefit, earned leave, as per the Shops and Establishment Act. What is it? And you have to give them. Otherwise, you know what happens. There is an audit and you will be caught. Now, over and above, people are also giving what? Sabbatical leaves. Ask Google, it will send you for 3 weeks vacation. Now, most of even the other organizations are giving paternity leave. Why? To have a what? Why do they give paternity leave now these days? It's not mandatory, but it's becoming common now. I don't know about ISPAT, but they are giving now. At least a week they are giving. Why?
Yeah.
You get the feeling that, hey, even the father is very important at that point of time. But then it is mandatory abroad. In Europe, you get 6 months paternity leave. Because another change, you are also having single parents, right? If you're not going to give paternity leave, then who will take care of the parent? No? In Germany and all, you have 6 months and all that, even for the father, So, I mean, and some of you may say, hey, that's such a luxury, the father getting so much of leave
Nirma,
and
that
all.
is more of a societal issue, because with the falling rates of population growth, these are all incentives for
Absolutely,
so in-
absolutely, absolutely. When you go to Europe, you'll hardly find population there. But now I think it's becoming 3 children, 4 children. And
Yeah.
also, like my son gets, 2 children, they get some amount, all those, so I told him, send your son here, I'll take care of him. So no, mommy, we'll then not get anything, all those perks which we get. Okay, so I'm just, on the lighter side. All right. Okay, so of course today everybody is giving emergency leave. Of course, national holidays mandatory. Okay, all this services and perks. Sometimes what happens, organizations are now increasing their benefits services so that if they have a retention strategy, like the guy will ask, hey, what kind of benefits I have? What kind of perks I have? Right? Huh? Uh, Employee wellness after COVID has become very, very key. Now they are not putting a cap even on that amount. If you are sick, full amount. Not that you will only get 50%, 20%. If you are sick, to that extent, they have become very liberatory. And then mental wellness is becoming very important. In fact, in my own organization in Sutherland, we had very good results because we correlated. We had a psychiatrist coming in, counseling was there. So what happened? Of course, everything was confidential. So we did online counseling as well. We correlated performance before that and after that. And we saw that the productivity levels were on the high after we started having these initiatives. Okay. Of course, low cost, free meals, furnished houses, facilities, recreational, all this. I'll give you a bunch of inventory, guys. You can have a look at them. There's nothing much technical in it. So I'm just wanting to, because we have something very important coming up. All right. Any questions here? The point to drive here is the pay mix. Depending on what my organization wants, what it wants to achieve, okay, in terms of attraction, retention, and motivation, I will devise my pay mix. Got it? Okay. Having said that, now we come to the very interesting. Yeah, this is a list of things at an individual level. All the, bonuses like, sales commission, merit pay, which I've already discussed with you, incentive pay, profit sharing, spot awards. Okay. Then at team level, group incentives, project bonuses, even quality and efficiency bonuses, R&R. You know how it is, reward and recognition, all those things. Then we will talk more when in our fourth session. And also at an organization level, profit sharing, ESOPs, profit-linked stock grants, long-term incentives, bonuses, recognition programs, etc. Okay, all these things. But we will talk a little more in our fourth session. Okay. Having said that now, and of course, benefits we talked about. I'll take just because there's something very. Today, I'm sure everybody has heard of this. Today, what we are talking about is ultimately what we are looking at is, have you noticed that human capital is becoming very, very critical to create that competitive advantage. So in order to do that, it is just not paying money. Compensation is good enough, compensation benefits. So World at Work coined this word called total rewards. Total reward strategy. I'm sure all of you have heard about total reward strategy. So when I say, what is this total reward strategy? So they say that please just don't take that employees can be retained, motivated, and attracted just by giving them some money and benefits, etc. Let us look at the entire relationship, employment relationship, both transactional and relational. Okay, so it starts from the time you have entered the organization till the exit. So therefore, they considered saying that if an organization have to really achieve its results, you need definitely very satisfied employees. And in order to have those satisfied employees, you need to work on 5 elements. What are those 5 elements? Compensation, which is all about what? Base pay, variable pay, benefits, then work-life balances, okay, then performance and recognitions, and development and career opportunities. So it's taking the entire employee life cycle. taking into consideration his compensation, his benefits, and what kind of a work life, and what kind of a reward are you giving, what kind of performance recognitions are you giving, everything. Okay. Having said that, just said that, I just spoke about it. The context of total rewards is what, in order to achieve the business results, okay, you definitely need to have the right kind of a strategy by attracting and retaining the right kind of a talent. That means you need to work on the 5 elements, leveraging the 5 elements. And what are they? I told you: compensation, benefits, work life, performance and recognition, and development and career opportunities. You will, and under this, like just visually, it helps you all. Employer provides all these things. And what does employee then give you? The time, the talent, the effort, and the results. Okay. It's a win-win approach. So this is a list of inventory. I want to take a small activity I want you all to do. This will be given to you under compensation. So these are a list of things under variable pay, base salary, under benefits, okay, under work life, then under work life, and under performance and recognition and development. 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. Now, what is it you need to do? Please discuss amongst yourself. You have an option. Either you can just look at one organization, your own, one member organization, or everybody can pull in. At this point of time, I will just send it as a WhatsApp. This Vilma will be quickly sending you this one, this inventory, which becomes easier for you. Okay. What are some of the things? You may not spell it out explicitly in your organization as total reward strategy, but what are you guys doing? Just 3 or 4 under every head, if you what you can give me. Is that very clear? Now, where are you as is giving, under these things? Just you can circle them or whatever. What are those things which you are doing? And put it in an Excel sheet, okay? When you present it under these 5 elements. Got it? So in 2 groups, just 10 minutes, so that, when you do, then you are able to retain, absorb better. Who is going to be the presenter?
So we were a team of 3, and from our 3 organizations, I have not mentioned the organization's name per se.
No worry.
So these are some of the initiatives which are already at play in our organizations. So for compensation, we have the salaries are in place, the salary pay. Then we have the shift differential pay and the weekend and holiday pay.
Excellent.
Then we have commissions and referral pay as and where needed.
Okay. Okay.
So in the benefit segment, we have the WC, the workman compensation insurance plan, the medical plans. And then in the holidays, we have holidays, sick leave, bereavement leaves, and leaves of absence.
So with respect to holidays, everything which is mandatory or over and above, you all give some all festival except holidays.
No, over and above is the bereavement leave we have, and then leaves of
Okay.
absence also we have.
Over and above, emergency kind, sick and all. Okay.
And then the work-life balance,
You have
we have flexi timing because of remote working. Then the maternity, paternity benefits, sabbaticals.
Paternity also you have?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How many days?
We have 7 days, 2 weeks in 2 slots.
Oh.
We have a month, 30 days.
Then Rakesh has on-site fitness facilities. Then we have return to work.
What is this return to work? You can you elaborate?
Return to work is the people who have gone for sabbatical for due to some reasons. They are just freshen up.
Great.
And that's
Great.
the way we do it.
Okay. Community volunteer programs. Okay. And
Parking.
okay.
So in performance, we basically have not taken down. So meetings, we have that entire 1-to-1 meetings, that entire process.
All right.
Then in
Service awards.
recognition, we have service awards, spot awards, org-wise recognition programs, employee of the month, appreciations, luncheons, and
Suggestion
then employee
programs.
suggestion programs.
Okay.
Development and career, we have this new technology training, on the job learning, and then attending seminars. Leadership training and mentoring programs.
Mentoring also.
Then internships,
Internship,
apprenticeships,
apprenticeship, IJPs, promotions,
promotion, job
rotation.
rotations, succession
Excellent.
planning for the
Okay.
key roles, not for all.
Okay. Job rotation. Excellent. Good. I don't know how many organizations combination is this, but what I can see is
3.
definitely a good show. Hey, please give, I think, a real round of applause. Wonderful work. Very good work.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you to
Thank
the
you.
group and congratulations once again. Okay. Now we have the other group. Yes. Yes.
So Anamika and myself, we discussed, and then in compensation, we discussed, yes, we do have salary pay, shift difference pay, and variable pay. And then
Okay.
in benefit, we have workman compensation, healthcare, so medical, group medical policy, PA, or term insurance policies and all.
All right.
Pay for no time, that is paid leaves.
Hmm.
Then in work-life balance, we have, Anamika's organization has flexi time, part-time, and paid and unpaid in time of maternity benefit. We do have, and paternity also we have for 8 days we are
Excellent.
giving.
8 days. Okay.
So performance and recognition, we do conduct in-person meetings. Then goal
Okay.
setting activity also we conduct. In recognition, we have long-term service award, then sport award, different rewards and recognition program we run throughout the year, quarterly, half yearly, and yearly. And we also have a sport awards. Then in development and career opportunities, in particularly learning, Anamika organization has a tuition reimbursement, tuition discount. We both have OGT in our organization, and then coaching and mentoring, leadership training, and formal informal coaching. Coming to advanced opportunities, internship, apprentice, succession planning, job rotation, and promotions.
Yeah, excellent. I think into certain things, like for example, you might just wonder, meeting and goal setting in performance and recognition. Well, let me tell you guys, it becomes really very, very important to have goal setting meeting to set goals, which are, what happens when you do that? There is a kind of what ownership by the employee that he will own those goals and he will ensure that he achieves those goals. And when during goal setting, then further discussions on whether he has the resources, whether he has the skills to do them. So all these things are discussed because it has a lot of significance, goal setting meeting. Okay. All right. But good work. And I think both the groups have really done a good job, guys. Okay. So this was the concept about total rewards, and there are organizations like Tata's, Infosys, Hindustan Levers, and other organizations which actually have very good total reward strategy. And Vilma will be sharing this with you and all the details with reference to best practices in total reward strategy. Okay. Now, without wasting much time, let me come to this last element, which is also equally important and setting the tone for tomorrow's session. It's called equity theory. Very, very important in compensation. When we talk about compensation, hey, is it fair? Is it equity? Is it equitable? But what is it equity theory? In fact, this equity theory was propounded by a renowned psychologist. Okay, he's called Adam Smith. Adam Smith. Now, what he said was, now all of you, like you're motivated because you want to actually learn something. Compensation. He says, in an organization, people are motivated to do their work only when they feel there is equity. Now, what is that by equity? Only when there is equity. That means when they see or when they perceive that their inputs, what will be inputs? Contributions, like what you bring in, your education, your experience, your competencies, your effort, your time, everything, what you give to the organization is balancing, is equal to what you get. And what you get? Compensation, salary, rewards, training, upskilling, sending you somewhere, good promotion. All this is the output. So when they see that there is, you know, input is equal to output, what I give balances with what I get, then I'm very happy. I'm sure when Amrita says, hey, in my role, I get good salary, I get good, my work-life balance is very good, I'm very happy, my performance gets rated very well, there is transparency. So I'm very happy and I'm giving, then I'm motivated, I give the best. But, so what is input? I just told you experience, education, everything. And what is output or outcome? Pay, benefits, achievements, whatever you get. So whenever there is a balance of this, I'm very happy. But what happens when there is a slight difference? Like for example, when there is a slight difference of what I get, what I give is more than what I get, then what happens? I'm demotivated, right? Or what I give is lesser than what I get. There also there is a problem. I'll tell you what it is. Okay. Now, but how will I know whether what I give is equal to what I get? How will I know? How will I know that my input is equal to output or the contribution I make equals to the reward? How do I get to know? Please, how do I get to know? Rakesh, how will you get to know that the compensation you get or the reward you get, everything is actually equal to what contribution you give? How will you get to know?
So
No?
I think, ma'am, after doing the job evaluation, we can get this if I am right.
So simple. So if Monish is an head HR, he's a VP. So somebody will come. The increment I got, compared to that person, what he is doing, I am not happy. Or somebody, finance manager will come. What they are paying in that company is much higher than what I am getting. So what is he doing here?
Balancing.
Comparing. I will only get to know nobody is bothered about 100 rupees what I get. Huh? But what is the other person getting? Compared to that, am I getting more or less? That is what is my worry. Till the time this HR recruiter who was working at 8 lakhs and doing everything for Manoj is very happy, works on Saturdays, Sundays. But Manoj then brought another person whom he paid 10 lakhs. And now this person says, the same job, but he's paying 10 lakhs. Don't tell anybody, but then compensation is, confidentiality is a big joke. You will get to know. Then you'll say, Arey, Amrita is getting 10 lakhs, but whereas I'm getting only 6 lakhs. So when Manoj says, hey, we have to do that, we have a drive, let's go. So, I have a problem in my house. Why don't you take Amrita? She's that nice new girl who you have taken. Take her. Huh? So what has happened now? All of a sudden, I've started doing less work, reducing my performance. Are you getting the logic? Huh?
Yeah.
So when you find that, how do you compare my reward with
My contribution.
my outcome, which is the reward, with the input ratio? If it equals, there is fairness and I'm happy. But when I compare it, and if there is less, then I will start, either I'll ask for a raise, or I will reduce my work, or I will look for another job. I'm so sorry. Or I'll look for another job, right? So these are all the negative behaviors. Out of 500 people, if 400 people are not happy, what happens to the productivity? Obviously, your fixed wage cost, ECR, is equally high. But What is your productivity? Profit come or there is no profit, no production. So, therefore, compensation has become very critical. That means it has to be equitable. It has to be fair. Because why? When people are not motivated, then they withdraw support. You are paying still till the time the person is there in the job, you have to pay that fixed salary. So you are paying, but no ROI. You are not getting your productivity. He's only 30% or 40% till the time you throw him out, right? But what happens sometimes when you also, yeah, vis-a-vis, when you pay more and for his less contribution, what happens when he compares? He will try it and tell others also, hey, no more work, go home early. So it also has other, or sometimes what happens, he'll work more. He'll work harder because he wants to justify that he's got his reward or increment. Okay. So in such cases, in organizations, they happen, and that is why then they look up into three kinds of equity we talk about.
Nirmala, I have
Okay.
a question.
Yeah.
How do we quantify contribution? uh, rewards, definitely it is in the salary terms or number terms. And how do I quantify contribution? Because each and every employee in the organization, he or she will always feel my contribution high and I am paid less. This is a human behavior, human psychology. Any even CEO of the company also will feel like that, or any officer, junior officer also will feel like that. I am contributing more, and against I have been paid less. So how can we quantify that?
How will you quantify that? Absolutely, your performance is a quantifier, no? So what happens during your annual increment? Performance is evaluated,
So
and you are given
it's depend upon a rating, performance rating.
Yeah. So you get certain amount of increment, no? And that person comes and says, you see, I've got less increment as in compared to that. But actually I did all this work. So very, very important to have your performance management, where performance metrics, where all that has to be quantified. Don't keep it qualitative. Simple. The more you quantify what?
So you are more relating to the goal setting.
What gets measured gets done. What does not get measured does not get done. That's why organizations has to quantify, have clarity on KPIs, key performance indicators. How do you measure them? If this person is in business process, what is it? HRBP, business, process manager, then engagement surveys, activity, list of activities, surveys. But what is the impact here? That also do. You have to specify KPI. So, what is the what is it? Employee satisfaction index. From last year, it was this X. It has to be now higher by 1 or 2. Okay. And then I go deeper. In fact, I say then do a correlation with the productivity also. Just not the score is high, but when you see engagement is very high, but you see there's no productivity. You have to go deeper down. Okay.
Yeah, got it. So you're relating to the KPIs
Absolutely,
only.
measurement. Absolutely, nothing gray, nothing gray. Only then transparency. That's how you will get, people will feel very comfortable. They will trust the organization. How do you think you will bring trust in the organization? Only when you have your policies and procedures which have been communicated and transparent, and especially compensation.
Right.
Not that what you get and what somebody gets. I'm doing the same job, but I don't know what she's getting. At least put levels. These are this. Most of the organizations are very transparent. Okay. So based on that, how do I compare Amrita is working for an X organization. You could be your HR head. Huh? Compare my job. What are the others getting in the same organization? You are always comparing with what am I getting vis-a-vis other people in the organization. Okay, that's called internal equity. What is it? You are comparing with others in the same organization. Please remember. What is external equity? What is other person getting in the market, benchmark similar position? vis-a-vis my position. That means if I'm an HR head, what is the other person getting? You know, the HR head in a similar industry. That's called market. What is the market paying? So if the market in a similar organization is paying more, we'll say, hey, you know, my organization is paying much less. That means there is no equity, not competitive. Why should I work here? I'll go there. That's why you lose people, no? Sometimes. Now, internal equity, you have understood. External equity, you have understood. Now, what is individual equity? When two people are working in the same job, for example, two receptionists, to simplify it. One is the CEO's receptionist and the other person is just a receptionist in the pool, getting the same salary. All right? They're doing the same job, title, receptionist. But the CEO one has to do a lot more things, coordinate meetings, do that, do that. Now, if I'm going to pay the same salary to both of them, do you think it is equitable, fair? For all the additional work she's doing, I need to pay something. Are you with me now? So that is called individual equity. Now, how do organizations deal with individual equity? By having variable incentive schemes. Because now Anamika and Rakesh are two people who are working as recruiters. Rakesh is don't mind her. Rakesh is a very innovative guy, active guy, initiative, proactive. And ability to close positions is very high. Anamika is a little slow, average performer. Now, fixed pay, both of them get. But if I say, no, both of them will get the same salary, after some time, Rakesh will say, I won't work harder because I'm also getting the same salary like Anamika. Why can't I just rest? So you have forcibly made your high performer into average performer. But if you have good incentive schemes, you are able to then get high performance from your reports. Because they have to be motivated, no? Why do they work? Because yes, if they work hard, they earn more. Are you seeing the logic? That's called individual equity. Are you with me, guys? Huh? Oh, sorry. Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
So we talked about, what did we talk about? We talked about external factors, internal factors, government regulations, union influences. We talked about economic conditions. We talked about the globalization technology. Then we got into internal, talking about what is compensation, what are its basic elements. Then why are they very, very important? Because your compensation strategy, which, the pay mix is dependent on it, because dependent on the kind of strategy the business has. And then we talked about this very important principle called equity principle, and then internal equity, external equity, individual equity. What is the takeaway for you from this session when you go back? What if you all are all competent people, when you go back, what is that you get to think? And then I'll tell you one. All of you, without much. See, we talked about the demographics and we talked about economic conditions. Then we talked about demand and supply of labor. What did we talk? We talked about
Demand
demand and supply
and
of labor.
supply.
Okay. So that means every time there is a high demand for certain skills, then you have to pay more. So if you pay more, your wage cost will increase. But if 80% of your workforce in the market is of high demand, then you need to have certain kind of strategies. That means you have to create some kind of a talent pipeline, because you can't keep buying. Like, for example, today, engineers are so many. You go to I'm just giving a very simple example, construction site. Site engineer, at best you will get how much salary? 15,000, 20,000, not more than that, 25,000. But you you take a crane operator, you know how much he gets? 40,000, 50,000. These skills are in demand. Blue-collar skills are in demand. In fact, I recall in my healthcare Sutherland, medical coders were in such a demand. And if I were all the time having attrition, and if I have to again buy from the market 3 to 4 times the salary, it is not viable. You know what we did then? We actually created a medical coding college where we took all kinds of science students, doctors, etc. We trained people and we supplied to other people. We also took people. That means if 80% in a healthcare, if a medical coding vertical, you have attrition तो रहेगा ही, because mom and pop shops will keep taking. But you can't afford to buy talent from outside. Then you have to create. So what does it mean when you go back? You have to see 60%, 70% of my workforce, what kind of skills are there? How do I actually take at what level? Suddenly market hits. Do I have certain plans, alternative plans of creating? For example, nurses. For example, in a retail chain, these customer care executives, they're always creating talent pipelines of having internships, apprenticeships, etc. So go to any organization which is into an operational excellence business model where they really need a lot of 80%, 60% of those jobs. Then because they want to keep their salaries low, wage cost low, they will create this. Got it, guys? You have to go back and think for yourself. Okay? With that, I think I will close the session. Thank you all.